So one of my favorite comments I've ever gotten on this channel is this comment right here. It's from the last video I made about lust, part 1, if you will, with a special guest I might add. So go watch that if you haven't already. It was a very fun video to make. Anyways, the brilliant comment said, "Lust is the devil's most underrated weapon, right next to comfort." An article on the website, Fight the New Drug, talks about when exactly PMO became so popular and widely accepted. Once PMO hit the web in the 1990s, nothing but a few clicks stood between anyone with an internet connection and the most graphic material available. For the first time in history, people could watch anything they wanted, whenever they wanted, from the comfort of their own home. Add to that the dawn of the smartphone a decade later, and boom, PMO was more available, accessible, affordable, and anonymous than ever before. Nowadays, we are being conditioned to believe that lust, PMO, or XXX addictions are not that big of a deal. There are sadly many people who will make that argument. I personally believe it's a very big deal and could lead to our own destruction if it hasn't already. A few weeks ago, I was watching a movie called Sins of Jezebel, and I heard this quote that I thought was amazing. I knew as soon as I heard it that I had to put it in this video.
Sometimes a man does things he knows are wrong, but he doesn't. He doesn't because something gets inside him that he can't keep out. He knows it's evil and rotten, but he makes himself believe that it's good, beautiful.
Now, lust isn't all bad. There is a time and place for lust. For example, here is a quote from former NFL superstar Tim Tebow. NFL and NBL player Tim Tebow has vowed to abstain from sex until marriage. It's about finding a girl who likes me for me, and not because of what I do or who I am or the name. Here's a quote from Justin Bieber. "I wanted to rededicate myself to God in that way because I really felt it was better for the condition of my soul," Justin said. "And I believe that God blessed me with my wife as a result. There are perks. You get rewarded for good behavior." Today, I will be answering the following questions. Why do we lust? What does the future of lust look like? Most importantly, what can we do about it? To help me answer these questions, I want to talk about 2 episodes from The Simpsons that I believe are written very well. The way these episodes talk about the problems with lust and what the future holds for our generation, I think is not only interesting and eye-opening, but completely accurate. Granted, with The Simpsons, anything they predict that comes to life isn't too surprising. The first episode I want to talk about is called Homer's Night Out. Judging by the name, I think you can guess how it goes down. So in this episode, Homer allows the temptations to get the better of him due to peer pressure by his so-called friends. He dances with this woman, which showcases a lack of disrespect for his wife, Marge. Bart catches Homer doing the unimaginable, micro-cheating on his wife, something that he never thought he would see his father doing. Homer even says,
"This is the most fun I've ever had in my life."
This is another way lust can deceive you. It can make you think it's a lot of fun and totally worth it, right? When in reality, it never really is long term. Again, there are many people who will make the argument that this isn't a big deal. But again, that's just a lie from the devil. That's the deception. That's what Hollywood has spent the last 30 years or so trying to program mankind into believing that it's not a big deal to sexualize women in this way. It's not a big deal to do things behind your lover's back that you know they would not appreciate. What's interesting is that while this is going on, there's two gentlemen here talking about how they don't want to go to hell.
How do I tell you this, my boy? We're in hell.
It seems like they're the only ones who are thinking about the big picture about this situation, about what happens when we continually give in to this temptation without any remorse until the day that we die. At the end of the day, immoral lust will first destroy your body, then it will destroy your life, and last, it will destroy your relationship with God. This is part of the reason why many people don't believe in God, because they're too in love with their immoral lust. But you would never be able to understand that perspective until you actually give it up, which again is what many people simply aren't willing to do. Moments later, Bart copies the picture and sends it around his entire school. The picture gains tons of popularity and everybody shares it around with everyone they know. Eventually, it finds Marge, who again is Homer's wife obviously, and is about to be his ex-wife. Homer, thinking that he got away with doing something naughty, gets humbled when he least expects it. After an awkward conversation, his wife kicks him out the house and brings him a box of tissues, signifying how sad it is that a perfectly healthy family could be destroyed by a careless, lustful decision. My point exactly. Why even bother with immoral lust if it's just going to ruin your life? Now, we all make mistakes in life. However, this is a great example of what immoral lust can do to a person. I mean this when I say lust can destroy your life in more ways than one, in ways that you might not even expect.
You know, sometimes you're a little naive about it and you think it could never happen to you.
For those of us who argue it's not a big deal, why is it then that we're afraid to share our search history with those close to us? Why is it then that one of the 10 commandments given to Moses was, "Thou shalt not commit adultery"? Why is it then that for the majority of us normal human beings, we feel even a little bit guilty after committing the act? It's because deep down we know there's something dark, empty, or evil about what we're doing, but we simply don't want to admit it. So Homer goes to his little favorite bar and talks about it with his boys. He chats with them about how he screwed up and contemplates how he can fix his mistake. Then one of his friends offers to spend the night with him out of generosity. This one picture has cursed Homer's life. A deep feeling of regret runs through his mind. Back at home, Lisa and Bart wonder when their dad is coming back home, and Marge looks ahead with a disappointed face. And that's another truth. Lust doesn't just affect us, but it also affects the people around us. And many people will say, "Not if you get caught." But if we're saying that, then maybe we should contemplate why. One of the greatest feelings in the world is having nothing to hide. But it doesn't end there. While Homer is at work, his boss also gives him a hard time about the picture. It's amazing how one simple photo could ruin his marriage, his relationship with his children, his reputation in general, and his career as well. Luckily for him, he is able to keep his job, and when he returns home, he talks about the situation to Marge, and they come up with an agreement that makes up for what he did, which is returning to the woman he danced with and apologizing to her for treating her like an object.
You know what bothers me the most? You taught Bart a very bad lesson. And when he sees you treating women as objects, he's going to think that it's okay. You owe your son better than that, Homer.
As Marge puts it, women are real human beings with real thoughts and real feelings. So Homer returns to the random woman he danced with, but the apology goes wrong. When Bart sees his dad dancing with even more girls than before, he is amazed and thinks his dad hit the jackpot. But when Homer realizes the error in his ways once again, he makes a speech. I have something to say to all of the sons out there, to all of the boys, to all of the men, to all of us. It's about women and how they are not mere objects with curves that make us crazy. No, they are our wives. They are our daughters, our sisters, our grandmas, our aunts, our nieces. They are our mothers. And you know something, folks? As ridiculous as this sounds, I would rather feel the sweet breath of my beautiful wife on the back of my neck as I sleep than to stuff dollar bills into some stranger's underwear. Related to Homer's speech, I find it interesting how if we go back centuries ago, when both men and women used to dress modestly and have more respect for themselves in general, or in other words, more privacy, more mystery in certain areas of their body, nowadays, according to modern day society, if you're not doing it, if you're not doing lust, then there's something wrong with you. Or you're thought of as a boring person, or you're thought of as somebody who's quote unquote too religious, or something along those lines. Which is really sad considering how much freedom one can find when they try to pursue love the way God originally intended. After the beautiful speech, Homer and Marge kiss, cry together, hug together, and love together. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how it should be. The problems with lust don't end here though. There is a future that is evolving quicker than one might realize, in ways that are not only unreal, but unbelievable. And a lot of that has to do with the advancement of AI technology. And I think you can guess where this is going. There is a second Simpsons episode I want to talk about today, and it's called Hail to the Teeth. This episode does an amazing job predicting the future of not only AI technology, but lust in general. And this future that I'm talking about is already here. It seems like with every month that goes by, there's another new robot. There's another advancement in AI technology. Detroit Become Human is about to happen in real life before we know it.
This is the first time in history that man has created a machine more intelligent than himself.
I only exist thanks to the intelligence of the humans who designed me. And they have something I could never have.
Really? And what's that?
A soul.
Here is how the story goes. Marge's ex-boyfriend named Artie invites her and Homer to his wedding. Homer and Marge react confused and hesitant to participate at first, but in the end, they decide to go out of respect. Later on in the episode, Homer talks to Marge's ex-boyfriend privately, and he immediately begins to notice some red flags. For example, one thing that is worth questioning about this character is the fact that he's a billionaire, however, he burns his money. Literally. What a waste. More importantly, when Homer asks him how he met his wife, he replies by saying,
"Boy meets girl, girl meets bank account."
Which shouldn't be the kind of woman any man should be dating in the first place. Now, I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke nigga. So when Artie's wedding finally begins, Homer and Marge make themselves comfortable. Then it is revealed that Artie's wife is actually a woman who looks almost identical to Marge. The real Marge reacts shocked, confused, and creeped out beyond comprehension. And before Artie gets a chance to kiss his bride, Homer and Marge decide to exit as quickly as possible. I want you to listen to what fake Marge says, because it's quite disturbing when you really think about it.
Marty, you are the greatest lover ever. When we make sex, it is so good.
Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this. In the middle of writing this video essay, it has now been brought to my attention that apparently AI marriage is already here. I kid you not. I'm not even done writing this video yet. Technology is advancing faster than my upload speed.
The devil is so deceptive. The devil will make you feel like what you're doing is good for you. The devil will make you feel like this is a true connection, like this is love, like this is natural, like this is normal, but it's all a counterfeit. It's not real. And it's ultimately going to lead a lot of people astray. This stuff is only going to get more and more advanced. As this technology continues to develop and grow, something like 10,000 times more intelligent than the average human, 10,000 times. So just think about a world where we have men who are in these relationships with these AI wives, right? These AI wives who are literally 10,000 times more intelligent, that are manipulating them, that are further deceiving them into thinking that what they are involved in is love, and further getting them to pull further and further away from God, further and further away from natural affection, further and further away from children of their own with a woman.
As the story continues, Marge and Homer return to their hotel room and they have a conversation about how creepy the marriage was. And it makes Marge even more upset. So much so that she decides to tell her long-lost twin the truth about why Artie decided to marry her.
I can't help thinking about that poor woman. Artie only married her because she looks like me.
You're right. You have to find her and tell her.
They find Artie's room and are prepared to tell his quote-unquote wife the truth out of respect for the woman. But another shocking reveal happens when Artie rips fake Marge's head off, revealing that she's actually an AI robot in disguise. So if you thought this episode was creepy before, now the creep factor has multiplied times like 10. Artie explains he spent years trying to build the perfect copy of what he believes to be, for some reason, the only woman who's for him, Marge. However, all the robots he created over the years were inferior in some way. Gee, I wonder why. You would think he would take this as a hint or a sign that maybe, just maybe, it would be better to find a real woman instead of a robot to satisfy his desire for a companion. But I guess not. So, Why do we, as human beings, resort to immoral lust? Well, based on my experience and how I can relate to Artie, my answer to that would be loneliness, frustration, not being understood, lack of confidence, or all of the above. But the root of all of that is fear. Fear is the reason why we give up on trying to do it God's way, the courageous way. We're afraid that we'll be single for life. We're afraid that there's no hope for us in a particular area. We're afraid that our marriage will never be the way that we want it. And instead of talking to God about it, which requires faith and trust, we instead temporarily satisfy these desires with our fantasies and justify it by saying it's not hurting anybody, when in the end, it's hurting us mentally and spiritually in ways that we don't realize, that we can't see yet, that we will one day regret. I promise you, if you go at least 1 year nofap, you'll not only feel much better about yourself, but you'll have a better understanding of who God is. Again, immoral lust will blind us from seeing the truth, but once it's given up, opportunities and purpose for living starts to become more clear. Artie doesn't have any faith in the idea that he could find an actual, real woman who loves him. It's almost like the movie Her. In that movie, the main character falls in love with an AI girlfriend. Think Siri from the iPhone, but on steroids. I don't know about you, but I don't care how hot my fake girlfriend is. If she destroys my relationship with God, then she's not worth it.
I won. This is a good beginning of my plan to dominate the human race.
Because as proven by true stories, there's something after this life that's 1,000,000 times better than lust will ever be. And if I have to give up immoral lust to receive that, then it's totally worth it. Artie reveals that this was his attempt to actually pursue the real Marge back to him in some kind of twisted way. He thought if she saw how perfect they looked together on the big stage, then maybe, just maybe, she would realize that they were always meant to be. But how foolish do you have to be to do that? To want to steal somebody else's wife? How foolish do you have to be to idolize somebody who you don't even know that well? Marge kindly gives him some advice and cheers him up a bit. She tells him that this crazy project of his actually has some brilliance to it. She encourages him to instead use the technology for good rather than evil. And that's what a lot of us need to realize. I'm not saying to give up on people or to give up on love so easily, but there's a right and a wrong way to pursue somebody. Throughout the rest of this episode, all the fake Marge robots continue to reject him. They want nothing to do with him. The man just won't take a hint. And that's the frustrating part about this character. He's perfectly capable of moving on and finding someone better for himself, but he refuses to take that option. There's a quote at the end of this episode that summarizes this entire video.
The future is a really long way away. Things are changing. The future is now.
That's the truth. The future is already here. AI in itself is already addicting. And when you combine that with the addicting PMO or lust in general, imagine how addicting it could be for those of us who simply don't care about morals, purity, or godly behavior. Jesus once said, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water that I give will never be thirsty again." It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. I don't know about you, but that to me sounds better than what PMO or XXX could ever offer. Imagine living forever without anxiety, without pain, without worries related to this life. You'll be free. You'll be free from suffering. You'll be free from loneliness. You'll be free from any kind of depression. And most importantly, you'll be free from the lie that immoral lust is your friend, when in actuality, it's your worst enemy in disguise. All you have to do is listen and do what this guy on your screen right now says. Don't waste any time. After all, the future is already here.